Welcome back to another episode of the Breakneck podcast, where two founders are dealing with the very fast changing world of AI, just talking through it, building in public. Ian, what are we talking about this week? I know exactly what we're talking about. I've been having investors text me, "Hey man, is this bad?" So I'm a little worried about it. What's going on this
Okay.
week?
Well, you should not be worried about it because you predicted it, first of all. So this is just to put it into context. This is about our 20th episode, give or take. So we've been doing this for 20 weeks. In the first or second episode, we forecasted this particular topic, and I'm calling it the Great API Lockdown. What happened last week was Salesforce announced a lockdown essentially of the terms of their API for Slack specifically, such that various constraints essentially around the quantity or volume of data you can extract via their API in terms of understanding the conversation. Now, if we zoom back out a little bit, let's talk about why they've done this and what is going on. So the concern is AI, right? You've got horrible entrepreneurs like Matt Pasienski trying to extract value from Slack, amongst other things, right? But really what we're seeing is this exactly what we forecasted 20 weeks ago, which is if you're a big platform, right, you've built an API around the kind of the surface of your product to build a developer ecosystem. And once you've done that, you get to call yourself a platform. Everybody has been doing that for the last 10, 15 years, open web, data moving freely, my data moving freely from different applications. But now what we're seeing is this shift driven by AI, which is, hey, maybe I don't need a UI. Maybe I don't need to log into Slack or HubSpot or whatever the particular application is. I'm going to log into my AI application, or maybe I'm not even going to log into it. It's going to text me or call me or do something. And so I don't need these platforms anymore. Now, that's an extreme view of the world. But if you are one of these platforms, and I'll tell you this, I spoke to somebody about 6 weeks ago who is in one of these large platform companies, but this person is on the API side of the house, API strategy, and they are deathly concerned about the revenue shifting from per user seat-based model, billions of dollars. So if you take Slack, it's about 2 billion, HubSpot's about 2 billion, the others are kind of bigger. Imagine you're in that spot and you're charging $500 a month per seat. And now somebody like Pact is coming along and say, we can deliver value. We just need a little bit of your data in here to sprinkle it across this and generate tremendous value. The customer is saying, well, maybe I don't need 10 seats anymore for Slack. I now just need 2 because there's tremendous value over here. Just to draw a line underneath it, you're now, if you're a third-party application, depending on where you sit in the stack, you're either not allowed to do what you had planned to do or were doing already for your customer, or you got to share some of your revenue with Slack/Salesforce. So it's the first big one who's kind of done it. And we're talking about B2B. We've seen it we've seen it in Reddit and Twitter and other places in the past, but this kind of monetization of API is coming. And as I said, it's kind of the great lockdown of the APIs. Gone is the sort of open web. So Matt, the question back to you is, and I'm being a bit facetious kind of characterizing you here, but it is part of the value at Pact is Slack and, creating value from those conversations, I imagine. But tell us a little bit about your perspective on it.
Yeah, first of all, I'm not evil. I want on the record, I am not evil.
Okay, well, we'll
Uh,
let the listeners make their own judgment on that, but keep going.
so I don't want to let that float around because once you get labeled as evil these days, they're canceling. Yeah, just for being ontologically evil. No, as a founder, yeah, you're looking to access existing data sources because that's the way you're bootstrapping your AI to being valuable. And one of the things that you can do is you go into Slack, and Slack offers two main things. One is access to stored conversations, and second is access to agentically interact with people. And I'm just going to call them agents, right? You can ask them questions and get feedback from them, right? So it's both a store of kind of a company knowledge base organized around topics too. So it's a pretty valuable thing. So yeah, we integrate with Slack and we integrate with several of these other platforms. Slack's a big one. And I got an email from somebody who knows a lot about Pact. He's like, is this going to like put you out of business? And I said, first of all, no. The way that it's structured for Slack is they're actually trying to stop Glean, who is a fast emerging AI search engine for internal enterprise content, right? So a lot of people say, hey, we need access to all these documents, and Google search isn't enough, and it's sitting across all these different systems. So we're going to use Glean, kind of like in the same way that companies use these data lakes. We're going to put it all in one place, and the AI is going to be able to parse it all out, which is an interesting business. And I think OpenAI is moving into, hey, you can connect all your documents, and we're going to reflect the same permission structure, but then AI can access it. So obviously, a very fast emerging and like good enterprise business. And probably Slack is thinking to themselves, like, why are they going to be able to steal all of our data? That should be Salesforce acquired Slack to have this type of stuff. And so the way that they structured it, it basically locks out companies who are just going in and data mining. It doesn't stop you from participating in conversations, which is the main way our agents interact with people on Slack. So I sent them back like, no, it's something that I'm worried about, but it's, that you have to be your stock answer. Something I'm worried about, but I don't think it's existential for us. It doesn't include us in this API ban. And this is the most important piece, if Slack starts to cut off access to all of its partners, then why would people pay for Slack when they could use WhatsApp or any other enterprise? So it's like you kind of have to play this balance, and it's a bit of an innovator's dilemma that, yes, Slack wants to keep that data, but the whole way they charge people to collect their own data and hold it for them is by providing this network of value in this Slack ecosystem, which never really like caught fire. It was anyway. I don't want to talk about who was
Well, I
responsible
don't
or
know. I
what,
think
but
I mean,
like,
I think it did. I mean, we've the term platform's been around for a little while. It's the aspirational thing, you're an application or your platform. And one of the big factors or characteristics of a platform is that you have this ecosystem sitting around you. And while Slack probably isn't, there's better examples of awesome platforms that you can do more stuff with. But the point is, there's a quid pro quo in there, right? There's a stickiness that is created when you have this platform. So if you've Pact and Slack together doing, providing this great value, the customer doesn't want to get rid of either of you. And your point's really valid. If you start kind of, sniping individual partners because you don't like what they're specifically doing, then third party, providers like Pact and Beppo as well are going to look at Slack and go, I don't know that I want to be sort of integrated with those. So I don't think, I've called it the great API lockdown. I don't think that's exactly what it is. I think it's really purely driven around how you're extracting value from the platform is changing. So the meter that's running just needs to be adjusted. And so
yeah,
moving
and,
away from
and
seats to,
Bill Gates had a great definition of platform, and this is how he thought about Microsoft. At least once Microsoft had achieved this criteria, and he could crow about how he was the main platform. Is that his definition of platform is that the platform owner makes less money on the platform than the platform users. And for Bill Gates, it was the people who were developing software on top of Windows. That was Windows as the platform, and application development or the users, not the customers, right? The customers who bought Windows were just an afterthought. They wanted to get as many people on the platform, but the main worry he had was, are people writing software for Windows, and is the software written for Windows better than the other software? Because then no matter how good Windows is as an operating system, if it doesn't have the software, then people aren't going to join. But if they do have good software, then Windows has a really good durable advantage, and so they can extract massive profits from their platform sales because they have lock-in at the application layer. And so that was the formula he used. And he said, we need our application developers to make more money off of Windows than we make. But of course, 10,000 companies making 20% more than you means that you're the biggest company on earth. And that's what Microsoft became. And that's why I say Slack hasn't really ever achieved platform breakaway yet. And I say yet because who knows? Microsoft, of course, ate their lunch in terms of seat-based pricing. And there's no durable advantage other than it's slightly nicer to use for being part of the Slack ecosystem than being part of the Teams ecosystem. Right? Teams is an inferior product from like a user experience, but it doesn't have, neither one really has great applications. You're chatting with other people for the most part, right? And AI is amazing because it's a set of applications that run on language. They don't run on computer code or OSs. They run on top of human language, especially between people. And Pact is one of those applications that's accessing the data. And so maybe you could rewrite the pattern that Bill Gates said, instead of platforms make less money than their partners, is more data generated by interactions with these partners, these AI partners on Slack, then Slack is generating itself. That would be a really good test. How close are we to that threshold for Slack? Are people interacting mostly with agents, and then Slack, gets access to that data? That's a pretty good platform. Or is it mostly people generating communications with each other and then people coming and stealing that? And then they're going to be constantly stuck in this very weird situation where they have to keep these outsiders out with all these various rule changes, like they're keeping out Glean. But if they can switch it around and make Slack the destination for your agents to interact and create data that Salesforce now has access to via Slack, that could be a good standard for them. I'm sure they're thinking about that, but again, plenty of people did not become Microsoft because they didn't make the same sacrifices to become the leader and own a platform.
Yeah, maybe Slack's a bad example in the sense that, in my mind, Slack is an unfinished product. What it did do is partially solve a problem, which is this need for asynchronous conversation and transaction in sort of digital types of businesses, right? So you can drop a note in and we can address it later. Really so that's half the problem. What it never did really is help resolve the issue being brought to light in that communication, right? We've all been in that situation where we get back to our desk and we look at Slack and go, look at all this work I have to do, and I have to troll through all of this and understand this. So yeah, Slack is not a phenomenal product in the sense that it hasn't kind of solved the problems that it uncovers in these conversations. Now, just to play this out a little bit, if you are Slack and you're looking at the various different third-party apps that are out there, because you're an unfinished product, they're essentially looking to finish components of your product for you. So you're scared. You're like, I should be doing that. And I think Slack has this interesting fork in the road here, which is, do I become an infrastructure play, which is kind of the backbone? Let me just move messages around and get them to the right places and have an awesome streaming APIs that I can get, those third-party applications, what they need as quickly as possible. Or am I actually going to try and finish my product? And nowadays that looks like there's a phenomenal opportunity to do some really, really powerful, valuable stuff from a product perspective. So I think maybe they're caught between this. Are we a product, or are we ready to become truly a platform?
Yeah, look, I don't have a huge amount of faith looking at the way Salesforce has run traditionally and the people they're putting in charge of various things, that like their orientation is to continue to invest. I mean, I think when um, Brett Taylor left Salesforce and opened his own agent company, Brett was the one who acquired Slack. And I think that's probably something that Brett would have leaned into. And the fact that Brett left and then they put, more of a revenue focused person in charge of Salesforce rather than an AI or a product focused person. I mean, I'm not investing in Slack with the expectation that it's going to be a breakthrough platform for AIs to interface with people and with each other. It's just, I don't see that. And I think Salesforce has a ton of data already in its Salesforce system, which does have like a lot of platform like things. They have this huge ecosystem of vendors. They have huge ecosystem of apps. They do a lot of kind of repeatable stuff that is driven by outside applications. That's probably the place they'd want to focus. And again, Slack just never really reached the critical mass. My guess is that it's pretty hard to become a dominant platform. You get like one out of the hundreds who try. So like my a priori guess is that the odds are low, and then looking at what they're actually doing, and the odds are even lower. So they'll probably just end up in a weird situation where they'll snipe various companies, and we integrate with Slack, but we also integrate with Teams. And I don't use Teams, but my customers use Teams, and there's a lot more people using Teams than using Slack. And so if they want to get really closed off with Slack, I think the value of Slack just starts to go to zero, because once Teams fixes, its loading issues and its memory usage issue, all the kind of weird stuff around Teams, that'll eventually get better. It'll eventually get to parity, and if then you can use all kinds of applications on Teams because Slack intentionally cut out AI, it's like, okay, well, what's left? And I would say, WhatsApp, and I mean, how hard is it to build a chat application, especially if it's a chat with an AI? Right? I can, intercom. I could send you a Twilio, a text message. I can call you on the phone. So I think the value of owning a communications platform, it's like once
Minimal.
it's one-on-one, because the AI is agentically reaching out to people. I don't need your Slack. It's nice, but I can send somebody an email. I can send them a phone call. It's like it's quickly evaporating as a defensible thing, and so you really need to invest in making AIs more important and generating more data with AI. But I never rely on people not making bad decisions. I just give myself multiple options, and there's
There you go.
many other platforms that would replace Slack instantly if they cut it off.
So let's expand the aperture away from just Slack and Salesforce. This is kind of the opening public salvo in this shift away from per seat to some more emphasis on consumption or outcome. Where, as we said, we're 20 weeks into the podcast. We forecasted at the start.
By the way, the shift to agents started on the day we started the podcast.
That's
We're 20
correct.
weeks into agents as well. That's also
Yeah,
true.
there you go. So, who's next? How fast is this going to happen? Is this kind of like price signaling between the airlines? Like, oh, I'm bumping my prices at Thanksgiving. Oh, okay, so are we? Is
Yeah,
it?
no, it would be very scary if all of them closed down if Microsoft started doing the same thing. Now, Microsoft is credible. Microsoft does own Outlook, and it does own Teams, and it does own SharePoint and every other thing in the world, right? It owns Azure. So if Microsoft wanted to build an autarky where it controlled users' data much more tightly, I think they're very credible. And then, of course, you have to ally yourself with Google or Apple or somebody like that to fight back against it. But I think we're still so early. Seat-based pricing is going away, and so none of these companies know exactly what their product packaging is going to look like. And when you have to completely repackage your entire product experience and reprice around that new package, I don't know how long it's going to take. And maybe it never converges. Maybe a bunch of these companies get in big trouble. And I think that's what keeps the CEOs of these big guys awake at night, is that AI is going to completely change their relationship with their customers in a way that they will not have the mechanisms. So they're going to probably keep it open a lot longer than you would expect, because if they make the wrong decision and everybody just starts using these other new AI platforms that they're not open to, they could get zeroed out. Nobody wants to lose $3 trillion by zeroing out Microsoft because you made a
Well,
bad
yeah,
decision around AI.
but
Like them missing mobile, like they miss mobile. They learned this lesson.
yeah. I mean, to go back to, I had this conversation with a person kind of struggling with this decision at a big platform company, and they are scared shitless, right? You're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies who are saying we're going to essentially have the same underlying cost structure, but as you said, we've got to repackage our whole product because AI isn't going to happen. It is happening already. Otherwise, Slack wouldn't be doing this, right? Maybe they have 24 months to do all of this, and it's somewhat existential, right? If you're a $5 billion platform and you're like, okay, well, if we just charge on outcome, if we just use the API, we're going to go down to a $2 billion business. We can't do that. So what are we going to be? Are we going to be the AI guys? Are we going to run all of these agents? And that has its own challenges because you've only got the data that's in your particular silo. Now, if you're Microsoft, you don't have that problem. If you're Salesforce, you kind of do.
People are so protective about the data in their silo. Most of the data that's valuable for companies, you ever click data and like you use your click data, and those are all wrapped up in these big data warehouses that have very little ability to own that proprietary data. But your application data is what we're talking about, like emails and Slack messages and workflow configurations and stuff like that. Real particular to the business type data that does have proprietary defensibility. I think we've all started like, oh, data's gold. It's like, it's not that much data. It really isn't. Like, if you look at something like Jira, right? Jira is building this Rovo tool and they have Confluence, but like every Jira ticket has to be created by someone. You have to pay $150,000, $200,000 a year of this manager going in and like clicking around to maybe create 10 or 15 Jira tickets a week, right? I just looked on my laptop. I had downloaded Ulysses. It was 1.5 megabytes. Ulysses, right? A Jira ticket, if you had it in the same compression, it's like 10 a kilobyte, 2 kilobytes or something like that, right? We're talking about tiny, tiny, tiny amounts of data that have been created through these old school Web 2.0 interfaces. And this is what people think they're defending. No, it's not defensible. You're defending kilobytes. Like, wow, we're talking about 4 trillion parameter models versus your 2 kilobyte Jira tickets, which are mostly metadata that's not I could
And
probably
they're perishable data too.
and it's perishable, it goes away. I could compress a Jira ticket down to like bits. Like it's not, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. What's going to come is people interacting with AI, AI interacting with AI, AI interacting with your customers, all directly, all taken in as new data sources, all generating 100, 1,000 times more data than you have in your systems right now. That's all, by the way, much more accurate and valuable because it's being created constantly in real time. It's not perishing like your backlog. We used to I worked on a product for a while, and it's kind of like a dumb idea in retrospect to like organize your backlog of Jira tickets. It was like a theme in like 2013. We had this, everybody adopted Jira, everybody had this backlog. What we can do is throw it away. That's what you do with it. If it's a month old, throw it away. Just get rid of it. Nobody cares about stuff that you came up with 6 months ago. Throw it away. And that's the answer. And I think the same thing. It's like your AI is going to be creating every single day more accurate, more valuable data by interacting directly with your customers at scale that you can't even imagine now. And so these companies defending their hundreds of kilobytes of corporate data, when you really get down to like no images, what is the text, what is the actual meaningful stuff that can't be compressed? I wouldn't want to try to build a fortress around a few megabytes of actual real application data.
Yeah, love it. So if you're to all the investors out there, you should be investing in the Ians and the Matts of the world. You should not be investing in incumbents. They're, as we like to say in Ireland, they are rubber ducked.
Uh, I would love to know what that means. I kind of
Well, it
want to
rhymes
preserve
with
the
something
mystery.
else, Matt.
Uh, it's just like Cockney rhyming slang.
Yeah,
Rubber ducked.
there you go.
Okay.
All
Now
right,
this
let's
let's land it.
yeah, well, what landed on your desk? Anything interesting this week?
Oh geez. What day is it? You start.
I'll go first. Uh I spotted a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Project Astra, which is Google's attempt at a personal assistant that operates on the Android platform. And
Hmm.
it was kind of a DIY um, target persona. This idea of you're trying to do something and you're like, oh, wait, I need to look at something on the internet. And like, is this the right tool to do that? I saw mass marketing video advertising for it, I think on YouTube TV, which says a lot to me. I talk about I'm into the DIY stuff, so I think it's actually kind of cool. But the fact that they're spending real dollars to advertise this to just regular old consumers is super interesting to me. It speaks to kind of the maturity of the product. So that was one that just kind of raised
Yeah,
my eye
just
last week.
on that topic, another Google company, YouTube, just is advancing very quickly in terms of total time watched against Netflix and all the other streaming platforms. So YouTube is really, I mean, YouTube TV, but then also the UGC side, the user generated content, and then user generated content and AI slop are really where YouTube is advancing. And like 99% of AI slop is absolutely horrible. But sometimes it's kind of like, I'll listen to this. This is obviously generated. Text is generated by AI. The images are generated by AI, and the voice is generated by AI. But it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm gonna listen, and it's like whenever AI gets good enough, that's a real scalable thing. They're never going to invent a Netflix slop generator. They'll invent worse and worse Netflix, but they're going to still have to pay production companies. That's their brand. Even though Netflix is worth 500 billion now, they really have roared back. But like AI, if like, just pure AI generated content, and I think that's why YouTube and they're pushing like we want consumers to be interacting with this AI. If we can invent the TikTok of AI, then they were talking about 200 billion views per day of their shorts, which are all just terrible slop for the most part. But if they ever got it right, I mean,
Except for our YouTube shorts.
our YouTube shorts are good and they're human beings talking, and we're so
And they're quite
authentic
popular.
and real. Yeah, and a few of them pop. Another thing is Mr. Beast released a AI generated um, the screen
Thumbnail.
when you click on the video, it'll generate those for you, and they have an algorithm that's supposed to be really good. I think we should probably play with that because
You mean a personalized thumbnail type of thing?
yeah, you can tell it like look at this channel and create the title screens in that style, and you can even put it in your own faces, and it'll put your AI face on it.
Ah, we're gonna have to give that a go.
Real terrible slop stuff. And when I say AI slop, I mean just AI generated faster quantity over quality type stuff. But people got really mad at Mr. Beast about it. But I mean, that's eventually what if it gets good enough and then there's nobody else? Google will have the entire stack, and they have this incredible monetization engine in YouTube.
Yeah,
So
gonna
that
be
was
interesting.
on my, and the my item this week that I wanted to bring to the episode is Sam Altman accusing Mark Zuckerberg of offering $100 million signing bonuses to join their AI squad. And they signed Nat Friedman, Facebook signed Nat Friedman, who is the founder and CEO of GitHub, and then Daniel Gross, who I believe was part of Brett Taylor's, no, not Brett Taylor's, Ilya Sutskever's
That's correct.
SSI.
Yeah.
All the S titled AI
Yeah.
companies squished together in my
Yeah.
head. So big deals. Really creative product people is the point that Stratechery made about that deal. He's friends with both Ben Thompson's, both the guy on Stratechery is friends with both Nat Friedman and Daniel Gross, and they regularly come to Stratechery. And his point is, Facebook is going to build products and applications on top. If that's what those hires indicate. So he's both hiring for the fundamental AI research guys, but then he's also really investing in building products on top of it. Mark Zuckerberg is an incredible labor leader. He's probably up there with the greatest labor leaders of all time, in the sense that he was the first guy to break the Apple-led. They had a monopoly on labor. What would we call it? A synopsony, whatever. Like all the there's a collusion between Google and Apple and Adobe,
Yeah.
and they all got a
Yeah.
ton of trouble for it. It was
Yeah.
like the billion-dollar
The
coach
non-compete
led
type
scheme.
of stuff. Yeah.
And so they were non-hiring all of them. And Mark Zuckerberg in like 2012 or something came in and just started raising everybody's salary. And that was the real wage inflation in the Silicon Valley. It was all back to Mark Zuckerberg, because he just came in. He's like, no, I'm going to make the hires. And he broke up the Steve Jobs Apple-led this illegal labor cartel is the word I was looking for. And he's doing it again. He's like, you know what? I don't think any of these AI companies are worth anything. I think their employees are worth stuff. And I'm just going to pay NBA all-star salaries for engineers and break up billions of dollars of VC and Microsoft-led investment. And I'm just going to light it on fire. So he's really just a bomb thrower in this whole thing, paying OpenAI guys $100 million to leave, which you can tell did not make Sam Altman too happy.
No.
As,
Apparently he
as
countered. Apparently he had to counter a couple of them.
yeah, but that's just like taking $100 million out of your competitor's pocket. And then like, I'm sorry, if you get $100 million, you're not doing good AI research after that. Like, I was a researcher for a long time. I was in physics, but like, if you gave me $100 million, you would not find me in a lab 12 hours a day. It's not happening. I'm on a fucking boat. I'm on an island 6 months a year. You can't stop me. I got
I
the
mean,
money.
do a year, maybe 2 years, and you're out. You're done. You're
Yeah,
retired.
and you're just thinking the whole time about your bank account and how you don't need this shit, and how somebody else will figure this out. Like, you're just not hungry. I don't think you can pay somebody more than about $30,000 a year to be a great researcher. But that's just my grad student think, my head coming on. Anyway, so he's just totally blasting the labor market, as well as releasing open source software with that labor he acquired. So he's just going. We finally get some competition in the Silicon Valley, and Mark Zuckerberg again is leading the way. So good on him.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, let's land it there. Congrats on completing episode 20.
Wow.
There we go.
See you
All
next
right.
time, Ian.
See you. Bye.